So you want an SUV with 7 seats for the family, but you also want it to have a performance focus. Till now, there hasn't been an option this side of $100,000. Enter the new Mercedes-AMG GLB35. Yep, Benz's new GLB midsize SUV has finally been given the AMG treatment, out to prove that you can have your cake and eat it too. But is it trying to do too much? Is it a jack of all trades, or perhaps a master of none? Before we answer that question though, if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to like this video, subscribe to our CarsGuide channel, and make sure you tap that bell icon so you receive a notification every time we make an upload. Now, let's take a closer look at the new Mercedes-AMG GLB35. Looking at the GLB35, it's immediately identifiable as an AMG thanks to the large Panamericana grille at the front and the more aggressive bumper. It's also got a set of pretty sweet looking LED headlights. If you come around the side, you'll obviously notice the power dome on the bonnet, which is also quite strong. But then coming around here, we've got 20-inch alloy wheels fitted, which obviously make the car look a little bit sportier with the multi-spoke design, although there are several options, of course. We've also got some turbo badging on the side here as well, and the obligatory plastic cladding on the wheel arches and side skirts, so you know that it's actually an SUV. Around the back though, the GLB is quite square to look at, and you've got these really cool looking tail lights that really give it quite a bit of presence on the road. There's also a diffuser element down at the bottom here with dual tailpipes that are 90 mils in diameter each and make it look a whole lot sportier than your regular GLB. And of course you've got your obligatory AMG badging on here as well. Now looking at the boot, as we open it, you'll notice that it is of course power operated, which makes opening and closing it that little bit easier, if not a little bit slower. Once we look inside, 565 litres of cargo capacity is available with the third row stowed. If we stow the second row as well, that goes up to 1800 litres, which is a lot of space. Making this area a lot easier though is this aperture, which is quite square in shape. It's got basically no load lip and a very flat floor to deal with as well, which makes loading bulkier items easier. Loose items are also easier to deal with thanks to the tie-down points that are around the space as well. Also of note, there is no spare wheel fitted, but you can store the load cover under this false floor here, which is quite convenient. Now let's take a look and see what it's like inside. As you can see, we're in the third row of the GLB35 right now, and it's not exactly spacious for adults. Mercedes says it can accommodate occupants up to 168 centimeters tall. I'm 184, so a little taller than expected. And you can see that with the lack of headroom. We've got a little bit of leg room, probably an inch or so behind the bench here, but it is in its forward position. It can slide up to 140 mil, and it's as far forward as it can possibly go at the moment. So if it was all the way back, wouldn't be pretty. Definitely designed for kids, as you could imagine. Now you do actually have USB ports to the side of each seat, which is great, and even little device holders to the side here, which is great for iPads and phones and what have you. So, you know, kids are taken care of in the back, but definitely not a place you'd want to be if you're an adult. I would highly recommend against it. Now let's jump into the middle row. As you can see in the second row of the GLB35, things are a lot better for adults. Currently behind my driving position or seating position, and I've got oodles of leg room. Now of course, the seat is now in its most backwards position, so that's obviously maximizing space for second row passengers and not those in the third row, but again, that is quite generous. Also generous is headroom. There's probably about an inch or so, and that's with the dual pane sunroof fitted, so that's actually quite impressive. Also impressive, you've got a low transmission tunnel. So this car is not super wide, but definitely wide enough that you could have 3 adults sitting here in the middle row in relative comfort. So again, another plus for the GLB35 there. Now in terms of amenities in the second row, got directional air vents in the center here, a very small cubby underneath, and then below that is another cubby with 2 USB ports for charging devices. We've also got a fold down armrest in the middle here, which is great, and it's also got retractable cup holders. They are of the flimsy variety, so I wouldn't be putting a hot drink in there necessarily, but it's good to have the option nonetheless. And in terms of the door bins themselves, there's enough room again for another bottle or so, so we're pretty well taken care of here. Let's have a look at the front seat. Here in the front row, the GLB35 is easy to pick out from the GLB crowd. You've got this AMG Sport steering wheel with these steering wheel buttons that actually allow you to switch between the different drive modes that are available, and this is the same wheel that you get in some really high-end AMGs, so it's very nice to see it here. You've also got these sports luxury seats, which aren't quite as sporty as their name would suggest. They're not the most supportive seats ever, they're not horrible, but they're definitely not your typical AMG seat either. Now, elsewhere in the cabin up front, we've got two 10.25-inch displays. One here, of course, the digital instrument cluster, and the other a central touchscreen. They're both powered by Mercedes MBUX multimedia system, which is arguably the best one out there today in terms of breadth of functionality and ease of use. But if you're not a fan, of course, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto are available to you as well. Now, in terms of amenities in the front row, we've got a couple of cup holders here in the front, a wireless smartphone charger, a USB port, 12-volt power outlets also in that front cubby as well. In the central bin here, we have two more USB-C ports and quite a large space there that's quite usable too. And the glove box itself is a decent size, in fact, so you can definitely obviously fit your manual in there and some other stuff as well. And the door bins themselves are big enough for a couple of bottles, which is always good. Now, before we go on any further, let's take a look at the pricing and features for the GLB 35. The GLB 35 is priced from $88,535 plus on-road costs, making it $15,000 dearer than the non-AMG GLB 250 variant that sits directly beneath it in the GLB range. For the extra spend, standard equipment extends to 5 drive modes, dust sensing lights, rain sensing wipers, power folding side mirrors, black roof rails, and rear privacy glass. Inside, satellite navigation with live traffic, digital radio, a 225-watt sound system with 9 speakers, heated front seats, and auto-dimming mirrors feature. Advanced driver assist systems include autonomous emergency braking with pedestrian and cyclist detection, lane keep assist, blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert, traffic sign recognition, driver attention alert, park assist, and a reversing camera. Noticeably absent from that list of key safety features are steering assist, adaptive cruise control, active blind spot monitoring, and front cross traffic alert, which form the $1,990 driving assistance package that should be standard at this price point. Meanwhile, surround view cameras and high beam assist, annoyingly, are part of a $1,190 optional vision package.
Like all AMG models sold in Australia, the GLB 35 comes with a 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty, which sets the standard in the premium segment. Better yet, the GLB 35 service intervals are long at every 12 months or 25,000 kilometres. That said, while a cap price servicing plan is available for the first 3 visits, it costs $2,750. So the GLB 35 isn't all that cheap to maintain.
Of course, if you're interested, you can find a full breakdown of the GLB 35's standard equipment and options on the CarsGuide website. Now, let's see how the GLB 35 drives. Now, key to the GLB 35 experience, of course, is the engine under the bonnet. Now, it's actually quite a familiar engine, being the 2-litre turbo-petrol 4-cylinder from the GLB 250. But of course, to earn the AMG badge, it's been given a bit of a retune. Instead of producing 165 kilowatts and 350 newton meters, outputs have been bumped to 225 kilowatts and 400 newton meters. And when you're behind the wheel, you definitely notice the difference. Now, if you can't notice it without just accelerating simply, once you flick it into the sport driving mode, which you can do using the steering wheel controls, you get a bit of pumped in noise into the cabin, which certainly makes you aware that you're dealing with something a bit spicier than a GLB 250. Now, also key to the experience is the 8-speed dual clutch automatic transmission that's fitted. Gear changes are quick, which is to be expected given the nature of the transmission, but they're also quite smooth. Earlier iterations of DCTs have proven to be quite clunky around town at low speed, but this is definitely a more refined version, which is to be expected. But of course, the DCT plays a very large role alongside the engine in the performance sector of the GLB 35. In terms of performance, the GLB 35 can sprint to 100 k's in a claimed 5.2 seconds. That is all-wheel drive hot hatch territory, and it really feels like it when you're behind the wheel. This is a quick car. Now, top speed electronically limited to 250 kilometers an hour, not that you'll ever nudge that in Australia, but needless to say, these claims on paper make this a true AMG. An entry-level one, but an AMG nonetheless. Now in terms of fuel consumption, AMG claims that the GLB35 averages 8.3 litres in the combined cycle test. During our testing though, we averaged 14.1 litres, which is obviously a bit higher than 8.3, but needless to say, a heavy right foot played into that result quite a bit, and also the fact that our short driving loop that we had for the car involved a lot of highways and country roads, so not typically, you know, your city driving, your low speed driving, so a little bit different. So in the real world, expect something closer to 8.3, but probably higher than, because again, this is a performance oriented SUV, so it'd be pretty far-fetched if you got 8.3, the same way it would be far-fetched if you got 14.1. Of course, there's more to the AMG recipe than just engine and transmission. The GLB35, of course, is no different, with changes made to the suspension, actual mechanical changes in fact, including new steering knuckles, a stiffened subframe, and transverse control arms on the front axle. Needless to say that this all makes for a sportier package alongside the sports tune for the suspension. Now, of course, the result of this means it does ride a little firmer than your regular GLB variants, but you do have adaptive dampers fitted, so you can have them in a comfy setting where the ride actually is quite good, even though it is a bit sportier. And then, of course, you can then put those adaptive dampers into their sportier setting when things noticeably get firmer. All in all though, it's more than livable, if a little firm, but definitely a compromise worth making, because of course the positive effect of all that is improvements to handling. And the GLB35 again has a high center of gravity. It is an SUV, but it goes around corners pretty well. Body roll is definitely something that needs to be managed, but it's definitely controllable. Needless to say, AMG got that balance between ride and handling just right with the GLB35. It strikes a perfect balance, but of course part of the handling experience is the 4MATIC all-wheel drive system. Being based on a front-wheel drive platform, the GLB35 does have a front-biased 4MATIC all-wheel drive system, but at the same time it is capable of splitting torque evenly 50-50 front to rear. But either way, when you're pushing hard out of a corner or off the line, grip is plentiful and you'll never be left wanting. So make no mistake, overall, these changes make for a genuine AMG product, even if it is an entry-level one. When looking at the GLB35 on paper, it's easy to dismiss it and say that it's not a real AMG, but get behind the wheel and it's immediately apparent that a falter bark has made it really special to drive. It's got all of the great qualities of the GLB250 and other GLB variants, but adds a genuine performance focus to make for an even more compelling package. Indeed, it's out to prove that you can really have it all. Now, if you're wondering what our overall score is for the GLB35, well, it's right here.